How's it going on, everybody? This is Joey of Underage Packers. Big B is not joining me. He is still getting good news. He is still in remission for his cancer, but right now he's in a big, scary hospital in Detroit. He should be back for good next week, though. But today, joining me is Paul Bretl of Cheesehead TV. How you doing, Paul?
I am fantastic, Joey. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. First I gotta ask. I know it's the holiday season and everything, but are you a part-time mall Santa? What's going on with the beard here?
Oh, it's doesn't matter the time of the year, it's always beard season. And as someone who couldn't grow a beard very well until my mid-20s, I'm just excited to have it at this point.
It flew straight down from the North Pole with Aaron Ripkowski. All right, so today with Paul, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming Detroit Lions game, all the Packers news, taking some key matchups and final score predictions, and all of that good stuff. So let's start off here. The last three matchups in Detroit has never been easy in Michigan. 2019, 23-20, a first-round bye was on the line. After the Saints lost, the Packers, they had to win against Detroit to get that first round bye, second seed in the NFC. They came out flat in the first half. It took them 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter to get those two great drives and ended off with a 23-point win. In 2018, they lose by 8 points, 31-23. Mason Crosby goes 1 for 5. In 2017, it's a bad loss with Brett Hundley, but the energy was off just in general. So, I wouldn't say this is something that you can expect every time because I think they're three very different situations. But it is concerning, Detroit, who hasn't been particularly well in the past 5 years. We've had some trouble against them in the past 5 years. Taking a look at the Lions injury report this week, Jeff Okudah and Kenny Galladay not practicing, not participating the past few days. How big of those? Because, week 3 when we played them, Jeff Okudah was not a go. I believe they had another corner that wasn't good to go for them. So how big would both Jeff Okudah and Kenny Galladay being out for the Lions be for the Packers, Paul?
I mean, it would be massive. And to touch on what you're talking about at the beginning, I don't know what the reason is for why they come out so lackluster. And I go back and forth on how I expect this game to go. I can see it being a blowout, which is what should happen. The Packers are the superior team by what I think is a fairly wide margin.
Yeah.
But they've come out flat against Detroit recently, as you mentioned, and then we've seen them flat a few times this year as well. Once they got punched in the mouth against the Buccaneers, they kind of went away. The Minnesota game, the Jacksonville game. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit concerned about that. But not having Okudah, and this Lions defense is not good. They can't stop the run. I mean, I wrote down some numbers here. They're 28th in rushing yards per game allowed, 31st in points per game, last in DVOA. They don't pressure the quarterback. They give up the 5th most explosive plays. So Devontae, Lazard, MVS. I mean, that's all good news. Aaron Rodgers. That's why I could see it being kind of like how week 2 was.
Yeah.
Packers had almost 500 yards, put up 42 points. And he's taken his lumps this year as a rookie. So, I mean, whether he plays or not, it's not going to change my expectations a whole lot. I still expect the offense to put up yards and points on this defense, especially with them struggling to get pressure. One name to watch is Russell Quora, if I said that correctly. Their edge rusher, he's top 5 in pressure rate this year. And Rick Wagner, I assume, is going to be at right tackle, so I think that might be a key matchup to watch.
A Rick Wagner revenge game. I think
hopefully
the biggest thing about that is being 5th in explosive plays, which the Packers offense has thrived on so far this season. They had a few week 2 against Detroit, so hopefully they're able to take advantage of that, take advantage of their defense, and that should be, like you said, it should be a blowout for the Packers. Taking a look at the Packers injury report here, Equanimeous St. Brown and Jay Sternberger were the only not participating today. A.J. Dillon was promoted from the COVID list. I don't think you can speculate too much about what was going on there. He's either, facing the after effects or still testing positive. But down the stretch of the season, how much do you think A.J. Dillon can get more involved into the offense? Because in the early weeks, it seemed like he was kind of the Tim Boyle at the running back position. So how much more involved do you think we will see him?
I mean, I expect maybe in the next week or two, not a whole lot.
Mhm.
I could see more attempts than what he got earlier in the season before he had tested positive for COVID. But overall, I'm not. I know there's a lot of excitement and speculation about, oh, it's AJ Dillon, big guy in December, Lambeau Field, handing the ball in the fourth quarter, and we may see that from time to time. But we've seen this year with LaFleur, and as it should be, Jones and Jamal Williams they're their horses, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. They are, perhaps the best running back duo in the NFL. So when there's carries to be given out in crunch time, we're in the final stretch of the regular season, fighting
Mhm.
for the 1 seed, trying to clinch the North. Once you get to the playoffs, those are the horses. So I still expect those guys to get majority of the carries, even though it's cold weather and potentially prime AJ Dillon, handoff weather. He'll get his time in the next year, but right now it's the Jones and Williams show.
Yeah, and the AJ Dillon pick was obviously more expected to be in the next 3 years after this one,
Mm-hmm.
with both Jones and Williams contracts coming up. You obviously don't expect them to retain both of them, so
Right.
it makes a lot of sense for AJ, and we'll see what they do with Aaron Jones. Maybe they'll make Big B's dreams come true and sign Jamal to a 10-year extension. We will have
Right.
to see. But let's talk a little bit more about that Matt LaFleur offense. One question that I have, I know you're not the head coach and you can't give me a direct answer, but I've been asking everybody, this just has come to my mind. What is going on with the hurry up offense? It is just so confusing and weird. Before, when they have a chance for a 2-minute drill where they get the ball back with 55 seconds left, it's just so odd. And I don't think that's Matt LaFleur. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what he's
Mm-hmm.
trying to do. There's no sense of urgency on the offense. Even when we're down big and still have a chance, like Tampa Bay, there's no sense of urgency that we do a halfback dive to Jamal Williams. Then we get back up like we're going to do something to a 5-yard pass. It's just very weird. So, do you have any answer or thoughts on that hurry up, quick pace offense?
Well, I don't have any good answers for you. I mean, we've known Rodgers has talked in the past about how LaFleur's play calls, like the actual verbiage,
Hmm.
is super long, and that's why he's using the wristband to try to help
Yeah.
speed that process up.
Hmm.
We also know that Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he loves to analyze what's going on with the defense at the line of scrimmage, and that takes time. And that's why the play clock's always running down to zero just in general, because he's
Yeah.
trying to absorb as much information as possible before the snap to know what the defense is going to do. So I think those are two big factors. And then, I mean, those guys are in the heat of the moment, and we're all at home anxious, but I think they're kind of in their own bubble. And
Yeah.
we're watching the clock tick down 50 seconds, 45 seconds, so on. But I think I don't know, there's certain calmness of what they're doing, and
Yeah.
especially with Rodgers at the helm, his 16th season in the NFL. He's been doing this for a long time. I think there's just a little bit of, you know, I'm just totally speculating, obviously, but I think there's a little bit of that factor as well, where they're not totally as rushed. 35 seconds, we have enough time to get done what we need to.
Yeah, touching on what you brought up a little earlier, bringing the clock down to 0 seconds. That was a big problem last year, even in 2018, I
Mhm.
believe. But this year, it was a little bit of a problem at the start of the season, but it looks like they really wrapped that up. I think we had one get close last week, but other than that, it gets close, but we're still able to get it out before having to waste a timeout.
Mhm.
So moving over to the Detroit Lions side of things, Matt Patricia got fired after his abysmal performance against Houston on Thanksgiving Day. So Darrell Bevel, former Packers quarterbacks coach, he worked some magic with Adrian Peterson in Minnesota. We'll see if he can keep that up these last few weeks here in Detroit. That would be the most 2020 thing ever to happen. Adrian Peterson still running all over the Packers, but a lot of talk about, especially where you have a situation where the Lions, where the locker room energy towards Matt Patricia is not good. It's just like some elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it because they'll know they'll have to run some extra laps at practice. But everybody kind of hates Matt Patricia. So how much do you buy into that fact of um, them being more motivated for a new head coach in there?
I mean, from the stuff that I've read, it sounds like all that stuff is pretty true. I think the word thrown around was dictatorship
Mm,
under Patricia, and Daryl Bevel just brought this looseness, and I think it showed last week. And he kind of let Matt Stafford do what Matt Stafford does, which is throw the ball around.
yeah.
And we've seen that he's going to make mistakes. But Aaron Rodgers, I think just a few weeks ago on Pat McAfee show, I mean, he gave number 9 credit for what he can do with the football. You know,
Yeah.
Rodgers and Mahomes get a lot of that credit, and deservedly so. But he wanted to pass props to Stafford. And this season, Stafford and the Lions offense, they haven't been throwing downfield nearly as often. Last year, Pro Football Focus had Stafford as the number 1 quarterback in terms of deep ball percentage, which is passes that travel at least 20 yards. This year, going into last week, he was middle of the pack, like in the 15 to 20 range. But last week specifically, I believe he was 3rd. So Bevel let Stafford do what Stafford does, which is air it out downfield. They were able to complete some deep passes that one to Quintez Cephas on Wisconsin.
Wisconsin legend.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that energy, that refreshness, the enthusiasm that they brought last week, that's another reason, you know, at the beginning I said I go back and forth on this. I do think that's going to be a factor. You know, at home, division rival, and they're technically still in the playoff hunt. They're 5-7.
Yeah.
7 teams are getting in this year, if not 8, as long as nothing's canceled due to COVID. So they still have stuff to play for. Their coaches rejuvenated them. They're playing what Matt Stafford style football is, and who's a man who's carried this team for a number of years. So I definitely think that's playing a factor and something to be mindful of.
Yeah, and even that, maybe the biggest thing was just like you kept on mentioning, letting the offense function, really, not trying to do anything too cute, letting Stafford be Stafford. And I mean, they put up 34 points last week, I believe, so they can put some points on the board. And that's against Bears defense, which I would say is just maybe a tad better than the Packers. But yeah, we'll have to see if they can. Like you said, they're still in the playoffs race, if you will. They're kind of too late into the season, too many wins to tank, if you will. And I think that kind of a general idea is kind of lost because, you know, these players, they still want to win. They still want to have good performances for future contracts, put that tape out there as well.
Yeah, when you hear about tanking, it's never the players. You know,
Yeah.
The GM might want to get that first pick, but those guys on the field, they want to go out and win and put up numbers.
Or your defensive coordinator playing cover 0 on a Hail Mary.
Exactly.
But talking about Matt Stafford, and like we mentioned earlier, he has come out guns a-blazing against Packers. Just even this year, week 2, he came out really hot in that first quarter. Packers were able to get some explosive plays. But how important, I mean, really, because if the Packers can't stop Stafford, that's going to be trouble. I would say the run defense has averaged out a little bit over the season. But it seems like, you know, if Darnell Savage can get a big play, they're improving their pass defense a little bit here. But could you see that being the big thing, that if the Packers don't have an answer for Matthew Stafford, they don't have an answer for the Lions and could end up losing this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's beaten this team before, and like I said, they're getting back to Stafford ball a little bit last week with the throwing downfield. And the big thing, the reason that the Packers have had the success that they have is because obviously the offense, but to be on offense, you need the ball in your hands.
Yeah.
So if you're giving up those, you know, those long drives, the Lions have the ball. You know, we saw it last week with the Eagles game. You know, they only kicked a field goal, but the game started with a 7-8 minute drive on their part and then a 3-and-out. So then after their next drive, there's, you know, 4 or 5 minutes left in the quarter and Rodgers had the ball for a minute. You know, that's honestly the best way to go about beating this Packers team because their offense just is so potent. You just want to take the ball out of their hands. So if Stafford can get going, something that the Packers do very well this year, and it's a credit to Mike Pettine's defense, which I know doesn't get a lot, is they've prevented the big play.
Yeah.
If we think back to just 2018, even a little last year, that I know I wrote about that was a big issue for this team, but they've taken that big play away, and that's what Pettine's system is. It can be frustrating at times, but he doesn't want to give up the big play. He wants offenses to go 10, 12, 13 plays down the field if they're going to score, because 1, that's hard to do. You're not going to do that every time. 2, you hope the defense can force a turnover, just a turnover on downs, and more times than not they do. Obviously, we want to see that cleaned up on the the 3rd and 10 situation, stuff like that.
4th and 18.
But yeah, and the 4th and 18. But against this Lions team, I think I think that does play into their hands a little bit. And then another player they'll have to watch out for on that offense is TJ Hawkinson. He's had a nice year. Packers have the middle of their defense, not just in the run game, but in passing game, has been lit up a little bit this year as well. Yeah. So and no Raven Green now on IR. So that's a player to be mindful of as well.
Yeah, hopefully Christian Kirksey can keep up with him. We didn't get too good of a look of his speed, or it wasn't too good of his image on that David Montgomery 57-yard run. But yeah, if the Lions can maintain that time of possession, that would be a big thing, because that's what the Packers has once again thrived on this year, and that's why they've been so successful. It's going to be important to not let Stafford have that time, and then not giving Stafford any time to come back. He's pretty much notorious for that. He's made it a point throughout his whole career, even through his fake spikes where he runs it, and hopefully that doesn't happen.
Sorry to cut you off, but this is certainly a game where the Packers in the 4th quarter, if they have that 2-score lead, they need to put the Lions away. I mean, they came back from, I know it's the Bears, but still the Bears defense. They came back from 10 down with 8-9 minutes left in the game. I mean, how many times have we seen Stafford go off in the 4th quarter? So this is one of those games where if they have that lead, they need to finish it this time.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think the biggest problem in that Bears game was the defense just gave up. Like that Kevin King missed interception was just the epitome of it all. It was a perfect image for it. So hopefully they don't do that. I think that's been a big thing, and it just hasn't come to bite the Packers yet. Week 1, they let Minnesota get a little bit more points on the board, and they've just done that all year, it seems like. So hopefully they're able to, like I said, put it away. And not even, but we've seen this year that Matt LaFleur is pretty reluctant to put it in his start or his backups that early. So you mentioned a little bit earlier, Justin Arcora on the Lions defense, some pass rusher on the Lions defense as a key matchup, but kind of talk about that a little bit more, or some other key matchup that you might have, and then we'll get to mine and Big B's key matchup for this game.
Yeah, so I think for the Lions defense, like I said, they're struggling this year. You pick a significant category, and chances are they're in the bottom 5 in it. But one guy to watch for is Romeo Okwara. Like I said, he's top 5 in pass rush productivity, which basically measures efficiency. He's top 5 in pressure rate, or in total pressures this year among edge rushers. He has 7 sacks. And he's kind of, by his snap count, he's kind of flipped back and forth between the right side and the left side fairly equally. But with David Bakhtiari on the left side, I imagine that he might take more of his snaps over on the right side again, and that'll be up against Rick Wagner, who has held up well this year. There were a few snaps early last week where he got pushed back a little bit. It was his first, live reps in a number of weeks, though. And also that is a good Eagles defensive front as well. So I think that's going to be a key matchup to watch as far as the Packers offense versus Lions defense.
Yeah, Rick Wagner is just a little bit of a drop off from All-Pro David Bakhtiari. Yes. Big B's key matchup for this game is Aaron Jones versus the Lions run defense. Both Aaron Jones and his guy Jamal Williams had a big day back in week 2, especially with Aaron Jones' 70-yard run to open up the half. I'm going to go with Devontae Adams versus whoever is covering him. If he can have a big day, which I think he will, but they were able to limit that in week 2. That was the Matt Patricia philosophy, take away, or the Bill Belichick philosophy, rather, take away what you do good. The Packers they did too many things good, and they were able to come out with a win. So let's hear your final score prediction for this week, Paul.
Like I said, I've gone back and forth, but in the end, I think the Packers come out on top. I think they put up a lot of points. I think I'll go 41. I think they break the 40 mark again. Lions 27. Okay. I think it'll be one of those games where, for the most part, it's a 2-score game where they're kind of around and in it, but the Packers are in control, and then maybe a garbage touchdown at the end by Detroit makes it to 41-27.
Big B's going with 37-23, pretty similar score there. I'm assuming that's including 3 or 4 touchdowns from Jamal. I'll go with 28-17. 20. We need to start looking back at these final score predictions because we always say them and then we've probably been
point.
wrong every time, but maybe we're right on the spot once. Any other thoughts on this Lions game, Paul? I mean, this is really only thing you can say about this right now is Packers should win this, but they've shown some stuff this year that they could lose this game.
Yeah, I think the key points from me are that the Packers offense should roll in this game just as they have for most of the year. But also, this is a rejuvenated Lions team under Darrell Bevell. And another matchup I just wanted to point out, I touched on a little, was TJ Hawkinson against the Packers. Raven Green's out. Is it going to be more Adrian Amos in the box, Will Redmond? There's the rookies, Vernon Scott, Henry Black. Are we going to see more, traditional nickel packages with two linebackers, Kamal Martin, Christian Kirksey on the field? So middle of defense, like I said, has been torched a little bit this year. So that's another matchup to keep our eyes on and make sure that Hawkinson doesn't get too wild on him.
One more thing I want to ask you about this. Tyler Ervin was placed on IR this past week. We'll see if he returns sometime later down the line, possibly in the playoffs. But with Tavon Austin being signed before, and the injury that placed Ervin was on IR was occurred during this Eagles game, so they expected to maybe have them in a little bit together. So where do you think? Do you think even with Tyler Ervin in there, do you think the Packers had a plan for both of them to somehow be involved in the offense, or was it really just one of them as a kick returner and the other as a punt returner?
I think that if Ervin was healthy, that on offense, the motion man, doing what he does, I think that would still primarily be his job. Austin is a punt return man. I mean, LaFleur even said he was brought in for special teams purposes.
Yeah.
And even without Ervin, I still expect that to be his role.
Mm-hmm.
If we think back to when Ervin was acquired last year, once we got to weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, we started to see him sprinkled in the offense a little bit here and there, but it wasn't nearly as much as he was involved this year. And I kind of expect the same usage for Ervin or for Austin. He's there to be a punt return man. He hasn't even returned that many kicks. He's got 25 career kick return attempts. 18 of them were his rookie year in 2013. So I know he brings a dynamic element to the offense with 4.34 speed. He's got a ton of rushing attempts, but he's bounced around recently for a reason, and his receiving numbers are underwhelming. And we've seen in Ervin's absence prior to this that, Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, Valdez-Scantling, St. Brown, LaFleur is going to send all those guys in motion. So it's not like they're going to be lacking a motion man in this offense, which is a key part of it. So to answer your question, I expect Ervin to be mostly punt returns, maybe kick return, and keep your expectations low on offense, maybe get some snaps here and there. Austin, sorry, I keep mixing them up.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype about him coming in, but I truly don't see having a new guy come in here, no matter really what talent you think he can add. Offense has been operating really fine, and there's not a piece missing from the offense like there might have been last year without Ervin. Well, I think that's where we're going to end it off. Really, thanks, Paul, for joining me. Hopefully, we can.
Joey.
No problem. Hopefully, we can clinch the division this week.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Make sure to follow Paul on Twitter, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Go Pack Go.